Peace, we back. This is part 3 of the lecture, the insert. And we talking about chaos magic. We're talking about chaos beings. And we're talking about the origin of the global elite who became these vampires, bloodthirsty vampires that feed on society. And how Lucifer created this physical realm from out of the chaos realm and then came to the physical realm and create a global elite to control and dominate, to be a buffer between Lucifer and society, right? So I want to go through I want to read some history to show how that happened. Give me 1 minute. Want to bring this up? So what I'm reading here is from the Holy Tablet, Malachi Z. York. Interesting book. I advise everybody to get it. There's so much information, so much facts inside this book. A real interesting book. Everybody should have this in their library. And I'm reading from the Holy Tablet, chapter 1, and the part of chapter 1, which they call creation, right? And we're going to talk about how Lucifer came and created the global elite. These vampires that feed on society, these parasitic mind control bloodsuckers that feed on society through using chaos magic. So I explained chaos in the first lecture. I explained the chaos magic, and now I'm going to go into the global elite, how they interface with these Luciferians and these satanic beings that came from out of the chaos realm and created a global aristocratic monarchy and bloodline. You understand? Something. Give me 1 minute. Let me get where I need to be at. Or do I want to need that? Give me 1 minute because I'm trying to set my thing up. Let me set this up. I'm going to set this up the right way. Because this information is real powerful and it's going to connect with everything. All right, so we're gonna read right here. I'm gonna start right here, and chapter 1 of the Holy Tablet, and we talk in the part of chapter 1 is called creation, but we're talking about Lucifer and how these Luciferians came into this realm and came into existence, and how they created this global elite of this reptilian Nordic Aryan bloodline, right? It says, it says, so each time an agreeable Anunnaki was born, whether male or female, his or her twin was to be disagreeable. The creation of the Luciferian Order, or genie, was the end of the first cycle. So you hear that? So the Anunnaki deal with duality. So every time an Anunnaki is born, positive and negative, one good, one bad. The positive is for righteous, and the other one is for unrighteous. The left and the right. So every time an Anunnaki is born, it has a disagreeable twin or a malevolent twin, and that malevolent twin leans towards the polarity of unrighteousness or the left path, which is the Luciferian path. You understand? I'm going to read it again. It says, so each time an agreeable Anunnaki was born, whether male or female, his or her twin was to be disagreeable. The creation of the Luciferian Order, you understand? Or jinn or genie was the end of the first cycle. So you have 4 cycles. Each cycle is 6,000 years. You have 2 moon cycles, 2 sun cycles. Each one is 6,000 years, which each to 24,000 year cycle. And every 24 cycle result of that cycle going through those 4 chambers of the gold, silver, which each one lasts 6,000 years, right? Which equals 24,000 year period. So it takes 24,000 years to go through that full cycle. And every 24,000 years, our history is renewed. So when we talk about the sun cycle, you're talking about those righteous ones, the ones that follow Melchizedek, right? And then you have the moon cycle, those that follow Lucifer. So you have Melchizedek, which is the sun. This deals with the sun cycle lasting 6,000 years. And then you have Lucifer, which lasts 6,000 years. You understand? So you have Melchizedek, righteousness, Lucifer, unrighteousness, the right and left path. But the Luciferian Order is part of the cycle. It's called the moon cycle. And I told you about the lunacy, the Saturn lunar matrix, which is the consciousness of those Luciferians. These are your 6 ether beings that revive off the moon. And Saturn, Satan, the planet that they come from, which is the irrational planet that ties in with Cronus, Father Time, or the Baphomet, which is the goat, which is the devil, right? And the goat symbolizes the lower lust and greed desire of these Luciferians. And the spirit aspect of these Luciferians are your jinns, right? Let's keep on going. It says the beginning of the second cycle was a half diameter of 7,000 years, in which you have what you call the angelic beings, be they agreeable, seraphim, or disagreeable, cherub. They, the race of Natus, were cast down from the 4th plane, the mental plane, and made to dwell on the 2nd plane, the plane of force, before their physical form. So I told you that these angelic beings were in chaos. They were in the chaos realm, which is the God realm, where they were going to war, and that would be the spiritual realm, and then they came into the physical realm. So you had the dark and the light that was fighting, the positive and the negative, the evil and the good. And the light was Lucifer. And so Lucifer came from out of the dark, the chaos, and brought the light, and he created order. That order became the multiverse that we live in. The physical realm, right? Those angelic beings that follow Lucifer were known as your cherubs. those angelic beings that follow Melchizedek were known as your seraphim. One were solar, one was lunar, right? But we're still talking about the equinox period cycles, right? And it says that they came from the fourth plane. The fourth plane is the mental plane. And then they fell from the mental plane to the second plane of force before they entered the physical realm. It says the El Elo, the source, gave them rule and comfort until the end of the second cycle, or the 14th year after their creation. At the beginning of the third cycle, which took 7,000 years, you have the disagreeable we, which is the cherub, and you have the agreeable Yah, which is the seraphim, both of which are called the Yahwehians or the Jehovians. You hear that? And in the Bible, what they call God, he's known as the Jehovah or Yahweh. But the Jehovians or the Yahwehians are your good and bad angelic beings. That's one collective order or group of beings, good and bad, positive and negative. The sun and the moon, Melchizedek, Lucifer, 180, 180. You understand that 180, 180 is the polarity, positive polarity, negative polarity, which is 360 degrees, which is the circle and the cycle. And that circle is broken up into 4 divisions, 2 being sun cycle, which lasts 6,000 years, and 2 being a moon cycle, which is 6,000 years. You understand? So they're known as your Jehovians or your Yahwehians. Yah being the seraphim, the agreeable, and Way being the cherub, being the negative. One following Melchizedek, one following Lucifer. It says, at the beginning of the third cycle, which took 7,000 years, you have the disagreeable Yahwehians and the agreeable Yah seraphim, both of which are called the Yahwehians or Jehovians. And you also have the process of the Adamites of the 14th generation before the completion of the Adama project and the laboratory in Sidonia called Shemitah, the Lamu, Mars project, or the Sphinx project. This genetic breeding and splicing chromosomes tampering is that which gave birth to Cadman, called Zakar, Adam, and even Adam. These Yahwehians or Jehovians were both personifying in the physical form to come to the planet Earth as physical beings, for there was no place found anymore for them in the fourth plane, the heavens. For when the Weans heard the news of creation of the Adamic project and the prototype that was laid before them, they created much war and mischief in the heavens. This war is recorded in the scripture, Revelation 12, 7th verse. And there was war in heaven. Marduk, his seraphim, fought against the Dracos, Halal, and his cherub. You understand? So you had the Jehovians, which are your angelic beings. Like I said, those that follow Melchizedek, which is the solar, the righteous, 180 degrees, polarity of positivity. And then you had Lucifer, right, of 180 degrees negative, which deals with the moon. So you have 9 ether, the sun, Melchizedek, 6 ether, Lucifer. One dealing with the sun, one dealing with the moon, 180 degrees positive, 180 degrees negative. And then in that same cycle, they were in the heavens. When they talk about the heavens, they're talking about the mental realm. The mental plane is the plane of thought, right? And they were kicked out the mental plane, the plane of thought, because of their disagreeable act. And they fell to the second plane of existence, which was the plane of force, right? Your disagreeable Luciferians, they were angry because of the creation of Adam. And the creation of Adam was known as the Adam Project or the Sphinx Project, which took place on Mars, in a region in Mars called Sidonia, in a laboratory that they call Shemitah. So Adam was created in heaven, you can say, on Mars, in a regional place called Sidonia, in a laboratory where they were doing gene slicing, cloning, and things of that nature. This is how they created Adam. And once the Luciferians heard about this creation, the Adam Project, or the Sphinx Project, they caused war and mayhem in the heavens. You understand? This was one of the reasons for the war in heaven between Michael and the dragon, because of the creation of Adam. The Luciferians disagreed with creating Adam. You understand? And so because of that, they created a war. You understand? And it was this war that got them kicked out of heaven, which was the mental plane. When we talk about heaven, we're talking about the mental plane of existence where thoughts start. So when I was talking to you about all things come from the mind, and the mind being the ether or the etheric plane, right? And it's ether that creates your thoughts. And ether is made up of what we call etherons, which are the particles that make up your thoughts, which makes up ether, and ether makes up your thoughts. You understand? These disagreeable beings who had disagreeable thoughts in the mental plane had to get kicked out of causing the imbalancement of thought and mind in the mental plane. So they had to get kicked out of that plane of existence, and Michael and the seraphim kicked them out of. And they went into the second plane of existence, which is the plane of force. And on the plane of force is where all your natural forces are created. So they were able to control the physical realm through nature, through the natural forces of nature. You understand? Causing chaos and mayhem. You understand? So let's keep on going. So it says the seraphim did win in the war between Michael and the dragon, right? The seraphim did win, so there was no more found there anymore in Uranus or Orion for them. And the great dragon, who was Halal, the son of Shakor, who was cast out, the old reptilian called the devil, and the serpent which deceived the whole world or whole planet Earth, he was cast out into earth, and his cherub did personify with him. You understand? So they were reptilians that got kicked out of heaven. These reptilian beings, Halal, who was the son of Shakor, the dragon, the great reptilian, which is the devil. That's why it's the serpent. This is where your reptilian bloodline, your blue blood, aristocratic, hemophilia, reptilian bloodline come from. It started there when Lucifer, the dragon, those reptilians were kicked out of heaven, Orion, because it says Uranus, Orion, and they came to earth. And when they came to earth, they set up this aristocratic reptilian bloodline, blue blood bloodline, You understand? Hybrid of your Nordic Aryan reptilians. And this is the royal bloodline that's controlling the global elite. Or that's a part of the global elite. They're reptilian hybrids. They're Nordic Aryan reptilian hybrids. Right? And they have the direct connect with your reptilians that came from the heavens, who was known as Halal, who was the son of Shakor, the old reptilian, they call him. And those cherubs were the ones that followed him. So the cherubs, those angelic beings, they followed the reptilians that came from Orion to Earth, that set up this blue blood Nordic Aryan hybrid race and blood, royal family, who are the global elites that we talk about right now. So I'm going to come right back. This is going to be, when I come back, insert 4, and finish telling y'all about how the reptilian Nordic Aryan hybrid bloodline came from heaven, Orion, with the dragon, Dracos, and they came to Earth, and they set up this royal bloodline. You understand?